Welcome to the Pragmatic Doulas podcast.
We are recording. Hello.
And
And
we
we
have
have a gang
a
today.
gaggle. We have a gaggle of doulas.
A gaggle of doulas. Yeah, it's better than being called a herd. A herd of doulas.
I don't want to be a herd.
I don't want to be a herd.
I don't want to be a herd. A flock? How about a flock? A flock of doulas?
A murder of doulas.
A murder of doulas.
Or some old crows.
Yeah. Fantastic. So today's our special book club episode. We hope you have read your book and are going to follow along and send us lots of comments. And we bet Steph is holding her book up too, but she's frozen. So
I don't have a physical book. I have the audio book.
Oh, that's right. You had it
that's
read
right.
to you.
Yes, I did.
You didn't actually read it. You had it read to you.
Yes, I did. No
Yeah.
shame. But you mentioned
no,
we
it's
have a
audio
gaggle of
great.
doulas here. So who is in our gaggle of doulas?
Let us introduce our gaggle of doulas.
Yes.
Christine, do you want to go first since you're brand new to this?
Sure. Yeah, definitely brand new. I'm Christine Crook, and I reside in Ottawa. And I'm a birth and a postpartum doula and a childbirth educator. I also encapsulate placentas. And I am a proud mom of 2 boys. They are 20 and 18.
Excellent.
That's me.
Thank you very much for joining us, Christine.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's nice to have community members, listeners come on. It makes us feel valid and legitimate.
I'm a big fan. I don't think I've missed a single episode. I'm a total pragmatic doula geek.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
Yay. And once
And
again,
we didn't pay you to say that either.
You did not pay me to say that. No. I will take some though if you want.
We don't have any money. Nobody pays us to do this.
I'll say more if you slip me a 10. And we also have Carissa over there joining us again.
Back by popular demand.
Glad to be here. I love the book. But yeah, a birth doula, postpartum doula, doula instructor, CBE. That's about it right now. That's probably enough. Yeah.
Where do you live, Carissa?
Sorry, I live in Toronto. I live in Etobicoke, West Toronto. I have 2 daughters, 31 and 28.
Beautiful.
Wow.
So there are no spring chickens on this podcast today.
No.
We're
Definitely.
experienced. That's it.
Experienced, seasoned
Seasoned
gaggle of doulas here.
veterans.
We know our way around, which is good for this book that we're about to read, that we're about to talk about, because I want to talk about some of the birth specifics in there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's my job, but I did it last time. I sort of facilitated the discussion, came up with the questions. But
Please.
for sure, if anybody has their own thoughts, ideas, or questions that they've come up with, please feel free to dive in there whenever you find a good spot. But and of course, the rest of us are here. Kim is here over there on the 1s and 2s. That's her. And Steph is down there. I'm pointing down like this makes sense to anybody. On my screen, Steph is at the bottom. Amazing Stephanie Alouche down there at the bottom. Her face is frozen, but that's okay. We know she's there lurking behind her little picture.
It's like you got good Botox.
Looks like you got great Botox.
Yeah. Sadly,
All
on YouTube, you'll show up as a blank screen, so nobody gets to actually see what you look like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's recording. Because I'm recording it.
Yeah.
So what I see is actually a blank screen. So
Me too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, okay. Too bad for them who don't get to see your face. Before we go any further, I would like to read a land acknowledgement. This is something that we have started doing a few months ago, and it's really important to us. So please give me a moment to put my second set of eyes on because it's like teeny tiny on my phone. All right. The land that we are currently recording this podcast on, most of us, maybe not you, Christine, because you're a little bit farther east and north than us, but similar, is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And it's now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Toronto is built on sacred land that is part of an agreement between Indigenous peoples and then extended to allied nations to peacefully and respectfully care for it. And by personally making this land acknowledgement, we are taking part in an act of reconciliation, honoring the land and Indigenous heritage, which dates back over 10,000 years. There.
Nice.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So,
So do we want to start with just a check-in to see how everybody's doing before we dive deep into this
yeah, let's do
really
that.
good book? All right.
Yeah, let's do that.
So how is everybody doing with life, COVID,
COVID corner?
school,
COVID corner, is that what we're doing?
COVID
No.
corner?
Why don't we do CS corner, like a COVID school corner? Because that's what kind of, we've all been in lockdown or you know, partial lockdown or whatever for months and months now, but this school thing is new. So if you have, and all of us have, well, some of us have older kids, much older, so if that doesn't affect you, fantastic, aren't you lucky? But if you've got anybody in your house who is going back to school, how is that happening for them? And how do you feel about that?
Do you guys
Let's
mind if
start-
I jump in here?
Yeah, let's start with Steph.
So it was very much at the very last minute, the kids decided to go virtual. Not so much because of COVID itself, but people's behaviors around COVID. Also, everyone taking one for the team because I'm not able to drive anyone. Abby's school is on the other side of Mississauga. And we weren't comfortable with her taking the bus there and back, the public transit, because she doesn't qualify for school busing. Anyhow, Megan also decided to do school from home right now, or online school. We found out actually on the first day of school where she did not go, there was a huge fight in her school.
Oh my God.
Because, one person accused another person of getting too close to them, trying to pass in the hallway. And although they accused that person of getting too close to them, they started a fist fight with them, and more people got involved, and it turned into a ginormous fight in the hallways on the third
Good
floor
Lord.
of the school.
Good
Was it
Lord.
melee?
Yes, and it was like, I think it was like all the tension around what people, you know, carrying fears, and so everyone's snippy and jumpy and irritable and accusing, and it just ended up, it started with this one fight, it led to other fights, and it spread. And so I'm really thankful that Megan didn't get caught up in that, because most of her classes are on the third floor of her high school. It's a big school. And that's why she was willing to not go, not so much about COVID, but about how people are reacting to it. Yeah, so she's home for the first semester until she feels like she can, until the school kind of has the kinks ironed out. She wants to go back, but she doesn't want to go back to that.
For sure, makes sense.
Yeah.
Abby's school has made adjustments for her, so she's actually not doing online school technically. She's going in once a week, collecting assignments. She goes to a very specific school with a specialized program. There's 30 kids enrolled in it, but only 5 showed up. So she goes in once a week, collects all of her stuff, can connect with her teacher online the rest of the week and get her work done. But
Like independent study, kind of.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
very,
that's good.
Yeah, that's cool.
so everyone's good now, and I think we're particularly thankful that that we decided not to send them back. Not so much about COVID itself, but the uncertainty of all these kids who have been isolating suddenly thrown back into group settings together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're expecting them to really handle it well when fucking adults aren't handling it well.
And ironically, the fight was about someone getting too close with each other, and then they end up in a fight.
Yes.
So they're touching each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
And breathing moistly.
yes. They are breathing moistly upon each other, and it spread down the hall.
Gross.
Other people got into a fight. Like, it was one thing after another.
Brutal.
Crazy.
Craziness. Oh, just closing my flimsy curtains. Okay, great. Who wants to go next? Carissa, do you have anybody going to
Not in
school?
my household, but my nephew, I was actually just chatting with my sister. He goes to school in Etobicoke, and she's decided to not send him to traditional school. But a friend and another friend, three friends, sorry, have gone together on a tutor for 3 days a week. One person has donated the space of their basement and have set it up as a classroom. So these 4 students who've been sort of together all summer anyway will study together.
Smart.
So the cost of
I've
this
seen
one
that.
teacher.
That's cool.
Yeah, and the
Nice.
setup
Yeah.
is beautiful. It's really simple, but that way they at least have some time together, and they can have art class, they can have activities outside, all that, but they're still covering the TDSB criteria, but they'll be doing it together with the tutor. So yeah, I was pretty excited about that for him.
That's great.
I love this amount of creativity that people are showing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Christine?
Yeah, my boys are out of the high school genre now. My oldest is here at home, and he was going to go to Algonquin here in Ottawa, but they canceled the course. So it's a really hands-on course. So there's no options. We just have to wait this out and wait for the course to come available for him. But he's lucky as a part-time job. And my 18-year-old is in New Brunswick at university in the Atlantic bubble. So he left mid-August and self-isolated in his dorm room.
Oh, frozen.
He survived pretty good. They brought him food. They did his laundry. He was actually living the life. He could play video games all day long. Everyone's like, how's Alex doing? I'm like, he's fine.
Don't you worry about that guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so classes have started, and half of their classes are in person. They're taking all the classes, but only having them in spaces at the university that's really big and open. So their auditorium, their art gallery, so that they can all sit far apart. So half is in person and half is online. So he's doing good, and I'm really thankful I don't have school-age children. And I feel for all the families that are going through this with their kids right now. I can't even imagine it.
Agreed.
See, I love that too. More creativity. Use all the spaces in the university campus.
Yeah.
And half online and half in person makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, he says it's going really well. I'm not too worried about him, and he won't be able to come home at Thanksgiving, because if he did, he would have to self-isolate again for 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 days isn't worth it. So that kind of sucks. But then he'll be able to come home a longer stay at Christmas. They're extending the Christmas break, so kids can be home for almost 4 weeks instead of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So they're kind of taking the reading weeks and putting a little bit at Christmas so that everyone can be away longer, so that the self-isolation is worth it when you come back, which is great. So
Good.
Okay.
yeah.
Smart.
That's great.
Kimberly.
Well, I mean, Thomas is in college. He was supposed to start college, but it's all online, which is good because the college he chose is in Oshawa, and he'd have to go live with his dad in Ajax, and I get to keep him here now. So selfishly, I'm happy about that. And Allie was going to go to in-person school, and then beginning of this week, when the COVID numbers in Ontario hit over 300 several days in a row, she decided to pull the plug on that. So I moved her to virtual school, like just sent an email at like 5 o'clock at night to the principal, and the principal like pretty much responded immediately and said, yeah, we'll switch her over. And I said, I messaged back and go, seriously, that's it? Like, I don't have to do anything? She goes, nope, that's it. If she's already registered with the school, we'll just move her over. And I go, okay, great. Now, having said that, in the meantime, she was supposed to start school, in-person school today. And she got a timetable and, links for classes and stuff like that. So I'm hoping that when they realize that she's not actually there, that somebody will go, where is Alexandra? But I was fully prepared at that point. She goes, well, what if I can't change? What if I can't change? And I'm like, then you just take the semester off. If I can't fix this for you and I can't make you feel comfortable, then we just don't go to school. And that's
Yeah.
the end of that. Like,
Yeah.
period. I
Right.
don't care. I mean, learning to me, being in class learning to me is not about the things that you learn. It's not about, learning this fact and knowing how to do that. It's about learning how to learn, and it's about using critical thinking and using your brain. And she has that in spades. So if she misses something, I don't care. I'm not going to send her into a situation where she's not comfortable. And I've always put it on my kids that, look, you do the research, you do the benefits and risk analysis, and you decide what's going to be best for you. We did that with their immunizations. We're doing that with their schooling. Like, you decide what's going to be the best option for you, and I will support the decision that you make. As long as you're making, like a doula, as long as you're making that decision based on benefits and risks and you're taking everything into account, you're 16 years old at this point. You can make that decision for yourself. So, um, at the last minute, she just decided that was not a risk she was willing to take. And sure, no problem. So we switch you over. Yeah, it's been kind of a shitty week for me. So COVID and these numbers going up has not helped matters. And of course, my oldest is a little bit ranty about it as well. So he's pretty convinced that we're all just going to die inside our houses and that's it. Nothing's ever going to change, and we might as well just get used to it. So he's a little doom and gloom right now, um, but he's a great way of going from one extreme to the other. So
And his classes are all online too, aren't they?
yeah, yeah. But he still works, so he's at work this afternoon. He's working in the restaurant, so which that's frustrating him as well because it's a lot of work and they have new people and he's a perfectionist and he hates the way everybody else does things. And so
Hmm.
so yeah, it's been a treat. It's been a really great week.
Such a treat.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a treat.
Suzanne,
all
have
of
your grandkids, are your grandkids back at
No,
school?
all of my kids, the ones who came out of my uterus, are all grown up, so I don't have any school issues to be concerned about. Like Noah's doing a course, but that's online. But there's nobody like going to like school. My grandkids are actually also doing all virtual, so they had made that decision as right at the very beginning when they heard that there was that option. That's it. They were doing virtual. I mean, they've got a homeschooling heritage because their dad was homeschooled and I homeschooled all my kids. So staying home to learn stuff is totally like we absolutely know for sure that you can learn. All knowledge is out there. All of the information you need for any subject at all is out in the world. It's not locked up inside schools. So, we've always all believed that, and so have they. And yeah, so they're virtual too. My nephew is virtual, but I think that I have a big extended family. So I think my cousins' kids, most of them have gone back, but my sister's youngest is at home, and her daughters who are in university and college are all online. And she has one daughter in high school who's doing like that 2 days on, 2 days off. I like that Durham has done that, where it's not all in person or all virtual. They've got it sort of, you go in a few days a week and then the rest of your class for a couple of classes, and then the rest is virtual or something like that. So that makes sense to me. So yeah, I love the creativity that everybody has shown, come up with different ways to make this shit work.
So can we come up with different ways for babies to be born outside of hospitals so we can keep going to births?
That would be, there's no such creativity in the birth world. There is none. I mean,
You must think inside the box.
There still are concerns, especially in the TDSB, about class sizes. That is absolutely an issue, and I don't understand it. But this episode is not about a rant about the stupid Ministry of Education, believe it or not. But the TDSB is kind of playing fast and loose in some ways with safety, that I think. So, and if you disagree with me, that's fantastic. Email me and we'll fight. Go ahead.
Fight me.
I do think, I
Fight
think
me.
a
I'm
lot
up
of
for
people
it.
will
Fight me,
take
keep
on
me
your,
alive.
I think, Suzanne, a lot of people will take your lead or your example that I think, you know, my sister might be one of those people who might not ever put her son back into public school.
Yeah.
This might be a new norm for a lot of people.
It might be a new norm when people realize the freedom, oh my God,
Yes.
your ability to cram a bunch of work in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday because you want to go on an extended camping trip for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
That freedom is invaluable. Or, you know, 2 people are sick, so everything just shuts down in the house for 3 days till everybody feels better, or whatever. It's awesome. Yeah.
Just the thinking outside the box, like you said, and being creative. I think a lot of people will see things very differently. I hope.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, okay. That was a fruitful check-in. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So, shall we get into the meat of this episode?
Mm.
Do it.
All right. So, we are discussing this. Is it every other month we're doing this? I forget. It was, right? The last time we did this, we did it in August.
Yep.
July.
July. Yep.
Okay. So the next time we do this will be in November, correct?
Yep.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. We are discussing Emma Donoghue's recent book, her most current work, The Pull of the Stars. And let's talk about Emma Donoghue for a second. Has anybody else read any of her other books? Raise your hand if so.
I have.
Hello.
You Steph, or no?
Yeah, Room, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
She's written a lot of books, but Room is probably the most popular one because of the movie.
Yeah.
I've also read The Wonder. So
I was surprised at how many books she's written. Like,
Me
there's a
too.
huge list.
Yeah, a huge list.
know.
I thought she only wrote the ones that I read. How very, very self-centered of me. How dare there be other books that I haven't read? But yeah, so if anybody's read The Room, it was done. Almost every book club did that book. And then, of course, the movie came out. And a lot of people watched that book.
Did you see this one title? The Woman Who Gave Birth to Rabbits.
Yes, I was scrolling through her book titles, and some of them were very interesting.
Yeah,
very
that sounds interesting.
Yeah. So
I had no idea.
Somebody volunteer to give a brief synopsis of the book, please.
Okay.
This is
Okay,
not
I
the
will.
club. This is not the kind of book club where you show up for wine and snacks.
I will.
Go, Christine, go.
So everybody's read the book, so do it. Give us the synopsis.
So the synopsis of this book is, it's a story that takes place in the early 1900s during a flu pandemic. And the whole story revolves around a labor and delivery nurse, or a nurse midwife. I'm not sure how they really classify her. I don't know if they call her a midwife, but she is in charge of the fever room in the labor and delivery ward. So she is taking care of the birthing people who have this flu. So she nurse power, and she takes care of the ladies having babies, and the whole book is over only about 3 days. And she gets a helper, and then her interactions with the doctors and the hospital. And obviously this is going to be a huge spoiler if I go any further. So what are the rules around this? Because nobody here can tell me they saw coming what came.
Spill the tea.
Oh,
Spill it.
I think that at this point, spoilers are fine. So
Yeah.
if people are listening and they haven't read the book yet, too bad for them, because we told them about it in July.
And honestly, yeah, it's true. But if you read anything on the book, like, you only pretty much get that information. It's during a pandemic, and it's about mamas having babies during this pandemic in the early 1900s. So it's so interesting on the timing of when this book comes out for us here in our existing culture. But she actually started writing it like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Yes.
So, and of course, when COVID hit, as it almost everyone says it changed everything. And then they fast tracked it to get it out and onto the shelves during this time.
And might I also say that this book is set in a pandemic, but it's not just a pandemic. It is the pandemic, the Spanish flu pandemic, 1918, during World War I. It's also set in Dublin, in Ireland. And that feels like a big deal to me because the setting is all of her books, well, the books that Room wasn't, but The Wonder was also set in Ireland.
Well, because she's from Ireland originally.
Yeah, she's from Ireland.
In Dublin.
And and I thought that was really cool that she started researching this book years ago. So obviously she didn't know anything about COVID that was going to come up. And then she had just sort of finished it up at the end of last year, and they pushed it forward quickly so that, because I thought somebody wrote a book about COVID already? Wow, that's quick. But no, it was just a coinkydink that she was writing about this topic. Anybody want to add anything else about the story, about the summary of the story?
I don't think so. I mean, really, it's just one woman's experience, but it's quite all the women on that ward. But it's about that one woman and how she works through the misogyny, her limitations, her growth, herself, all during a fucking pandemic on a fever.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that brief synopsis. So what we like to do is we're going to do a round robin and go around, and everybody's going to give the book a rating out of 10, between 1 and 10, 1 being the worst book I've ever read, 10 being the best book I've ever read. And you're going to give a brief explanation as to why you are giving it that rating. Okay. So I'm going to start at the bottom with Stephanie, work my way clockwise around the clock. Stephanie, what's your rating for this book out of 10?
8.
8. Why?
Solid 8, close to 9. It hit all the markers. Of course, it hits close to home right now with everything we are experiencing and the explanations of the Spanish flu and how it affects so many people differently, and that it's the great unknown. So much of it is that it so reflects what's happening today, but the character development, the characters they chose to introduce, the challenges that might have been in 1918, but they're still so real today, were so beautifully and realistically written that I did not want to put it down. And the only reason I fall short of even like a 9 or a 10 is because I wanted more. When it ended, I didn't feel like it was a bad ending. I thought it was a great ending, and it was a realistic ending, and it felt right to the character. But I fucking wanted more. Like at the end, I'm like, what? No.
Mm-hmm.
I need more of this character. I need to know how she does. So solid.
Maybe it'll be a sequel.
I hope so. Like, or maybe I don't. Maybe that wanting is part of the joy, but I don't know. But solid 8, 9 for this book.
8.5.
8.5.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thank you. Christine, what do you rate this book and why?
So I too float between an 8 and a 9, so I'll say an 8.5. It obviously, for a birth worker, reading this, it just sparks something within you to hear the history. And, like I watch the silliest shows because at some point someone's going to have a baby, and now I have to keep watching to see the birth story. Like as a birth worker, I think you get kind of drawn in and addicted to anything birth related. I had the physical book, but I also listened to audiobooks, and I have a Kobo, and I'm grateful. Unlike Stephanie, when she was like, what? Like, I think when you have the physical book, you have a visual of how much further there is to go. So you start preparing for the end. Yeah. But I find when I listen to an audiobook and it just stops, I'm like, what the hell? Like, so having a physical book was better for this book, so I could prepare for the end coming. I've just never been affected by a story that kind of ended in that way. to see the love and to see that part. I was bawling. And the only thing that I didn't like about this book was like a typing thing. Like, what does she have against quotation marks?
Yes, that's
Right?
coming up. Nobody comment. I get a prick. That's one of the questions.
What the fuck? I was like,
nuts.
when did she start talking? When did she stop talking? It took me a while for my brain to get used to figuring that stuff out, but everything about the story was amazing. Everything about how it unfolded was amazing. Disturbing at times, like there's so much, trauma for this poor woman, but other than the missing quotation marks, I'm like right up there as one of the best books I've ever read.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kim?
I'm gonna go like maybe 7.5. I wasn't thrilled with the ending, to be honest. I think I agree about the fucking quotation marks, but we'll get into that, I think, in a bit. I I think for me, it almost felt like the book was rush written. I would have liked to have seen more character development of her brother. I would have liked to have seen more character development of her. It just felt like there was too much emphasis put in areas where I didn't necessarily care. I will say though, as a birth worker, during the birthing scenes and whatnot that was described, I'm like, yep, that's what I would have done. Yep, that's what I would have done. Yep, that was good. Yep, nope, good for you. Usually you read this stuff. Now, granted, obviously, it was like every birth was not great. It would have been nice to have one that was, maybe pretty damn good. But whatever. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of the ending. Not that it ended, I just didn't like the way it ended. So, yeah, I'll go 7.5.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's my turn. And I am going to give this book a 6.5 because I'm so mean and stingy with my book grading.
Hardcore.
But I also felt, just like Kim said, I did feel like it was rushed. The story was rushed. I felt like she glossed over the surface. There was so much, like you said, her brother, there was so much there that could have been fleshed out.
Yep.
So much more about Bridie and her story, so much about the doctor. What's her name? Hannah?
Dr. Lynn.
Dr. Lynn. So there's so many things little nuggets that she just threw at you that you're like, oh, what's this? Oh, that's all? Okay. And then it happened within 3 days. And in 3 days, think about everything that happened. So much life and death and romance and that and everything all crammed into one day and in one room, which is the next thing that I wanted to say about Emma Donoghue. I kept on rolling my eyes because all 3 of the books of hers that I've read all take place in one room. Believe it or not, The Wonder, the other book of hers that I've read, also takes place in one room with somebody sick in a bed.
Maybe that's just her jam. Maybe that's just like what she wants to be known for.
It seems like her jam, and it was a stuffy, smelly kind of jam. Anyways, it got 6.5 because a lot of the birthy stuff in there. Even though I felt a lot of it was sensationalized, that people who are not in the birth world tend to do about birth, because as we know, most birth is really boring. Now, okay, mind you, these are people who have the friggin' plague practically, right? But still, it was a lot of.
I would have liked one, like just one that was normal, boring birth.
Drawn out, push for an hour, baby comes out. That's
latches on. We're all good. Have a nice day. We'll see you next year. Like
that one woman was in labor for 2 days, guys. 2 days.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. With a bad outcome. This is true. So anyways, I give it a
see my cat behind me.
Yes, I can. Oh my God. We barely could see like our glowing eyes. It's almost Halloween. That's a Halloween portent. So yeah, I gave it a 6.5. So not horrible, but definitely not great.
That's fair.
But would you go back and read more of her books just to find out if it's based in another fucking room?
Oh, I'll just, no, I won't do that. I'll go on Goodreads.
I'm checking for quotation marks in her next book. I'm not reading another book without quotation marks. No.
Yeah, please.
I have
Carissa.
to ask, does anyone know why that happened? Why she did that?
It's a question. We're going to have that. It's a question. We're going to come to it after.
Okay.
Carissa has to give us her rating.
I was going to give it an 8. I feel like if you weren't a birth worker, you wouldn't find it as good. The quotations made me insane. We'll talk about it later. I found the beginning hard to get through, and then all of a sudden it just went, I went, oh, wow. And I couldn't stop turning the pages, so I loved it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It really changed. I wanted more of the love story. For me, that was huge, and I felt like it was not even remotely enough time. So yeah, but I wonder when we want more from a book, is it because we're used to watching shows that have many episodes? Do you think, well, you guys are big readers, that's not it. So it's not that.
I always wonder too, when people say they want more from a book, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Right?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Does the author inspire you to want to know more, dive deeper into the story and the characters, or does it leave you feeling empty and hanging and lacking? I don't know.
I didn't feel that from the book. I liked the book a lot, like I said, but I just felt like there was a couple things that she could have dug into a bit more, or there could have. I liked being shocked by the love affair. I loved the fact that it happened. Yeah, I didn't like the ending either. So,
all right, great. Thank you for your ratings. So, 8.5, 8.5, 7.5, 6.5, and 8. Is that? Did you give 8, Carissa?
8. Yeah,
okay. All right, that's pretty good. I would say an average of around 7, 7.5. That's not bad. We should write to Emma Donoghue and tell her we gave her a solid 7.5. 7. I was like a 7.5 student in school my life. So heck, that's not bad. Okay, next question.
It's a pass.
Yeah.
Right?
And
decent pass. We're not talking 5.5, which is also a pass barely. 7.5 is a decent passing grade. Okay, next question is who is your favorite character and why? Because there were some characters. There were very few characters, and like some of us said they wanted to know more. I felt like she could have fleshed things out a little bit. Who is your favorite character? We'll go back down again to Steph.
Bridie, hands down. However, whenever she would say Bridie, in my head I kept wanting to correct it to Birdie.
Birdie, me too. It's one of those names like Hermione. For like about a year or long into reading the Harry Potter books, we would have debates about if it was Hermione, and then when we heard it was Hermione, we were like, Hermione, that's the weirdest thing ever. So yeah, I kept reading it as Birdie. Said nope, it's BR, Bridie. What did you like about Bridie?
This is gonna sound corny. Her unbridled way of just going in and doing things. Just do it. She had no assumption that she would fail to do something that she chose to try to do. Mm-hmm. And it just kept going. Like whenever she would be asked to do something or offered to do something, she would just do it, and never with the assumption that she should judge herself for failing. She just went and did it, and I loved that about her.
Yes.
And of course, the development of the love story. She just again went with it, felt something, and moved with it, and it was surprising, and it was wonderful, and it was absolutely in keeping with that character. And I was so sad when the first hints of her illness came in. It's like, fuck, no, you're not fucking doing that. And it kept coming, and it kept coming, and it actually made me I had like a pit in my stomach as she deteriorated.
Mhm.
And all the characters were quite interesting. Again, there weren't that many, but I really, really, really enjoyed every minute that was discussed with her, anything that had to do with her on those pages.
Beautiful. Christine, who did you like the best?
I liked Birdie too. Yeah.
Bridie, not Birdie. See?
I literally finished like the last 10 pages this morning, and it was only this morning that I realized it was BR, like literally this morning.
I never did until just now.
Till just now.
The brain
You're
didn't
5 minutes old. When
Yeah.
you're-
So Bridie, almost for this like same reasons, but it's her character. When I was reading it, I felt like I could really identify with her in the birth world. Like if you read this book, she was the doula, right? She was in the room, the extra set of hands, maybe not the connection with the birthing people, but she just felt a little bit like what we do in our work. And sometimes blindly, I too feel like I just move forward and not really think all the time. And is that a good characteristic or not? And it's just how she was just so there and just so, I got you, I got this. And, for the nurse to turn around and go, how could you expose yourself knowing that you hadn't had this flu? She's like, well, you needed help. So here I am. And I had to show up. Now, just her unselfishness, but also her willingness to do so much good when so much shit had been done to her. And all the admittance of what happened to her in her past and in the church and all of that stuff. But she was just so full of love and availability to be there for others. And then, show her love for, I just thought she was great. She was great. And I yelled at the book this morning, like, don't you kill her. Don't you dare.
Damn it, Emma! Why do you have to do this?
Yeah.
Thank you. Kim.
I like Dr. Lynn. I think she, especially at the time, and of course being Irish myself, I completely got her convictions to stand up for her people and what was happening with the British and the Catholic Church and things like that. So I appreciated the convictions that she had and her ability to just go in and say, oh yeah, you're super capable, you just handle that, like you're good, I'm gonna go over here and do some life-saving stuff, you stay here and you just do what you do, and I give you permission to do all that stuff. Whereas the male doctors were like, you can't do that, you can't do any of this stuff, like you're
Let me get my equipment out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you read that she's a real person? That this
Yeah.
is not
She's an actual historical figure.
Yeah.
That was cool. Yes,
Yeah.
that was cool. I like that.
Yeah, so yeah, it was just I really liked sort of the patients themselves too, like not any individual one, but just who they were and the dynamics of where they came from. And then when all is said and done, like you have the one who's a little bit more upwardly mobile, and then one 12 kids and all of this stuff, and yet when it all comes down to it and you boil it all down to the very last second, you're all just birthing mothers and you're all going through the exact same thing in the exact same room at this time, and there's really no difference between any of you. And I thought that was an interesting parallel to throw in. And as I say, I liked the sort of the individual characters, the mothers themselves.
Okay, my turn. My favorite character that I just realized as you guys are talking is Julia. Like the main character is my favorite. Maybe that's just me, and it's just simply because I know the most about her. So I didn't feel much for the other characters because I didn't know very much about them, but I knew a lot about Julia, and I loved her work ethic and her commitment to her patients. And those were the saviors during that pandemic. Those are the saviors today. And all by herself, she was able to commandeer that fever room and have these births happen, even in defiance of the male doctor that came in who wanted to saw the woman's pelvic bone in two.
Hello.
Oh my God. I have never heard about that, but we're going to talk about that stuff too.
Yeah.
So I love Julia because of her strength, her courage, her smartness. She was so smart, her openness, her non-judgmental attitude and way of being. And I was able to see all of that because she was the one that we read the most about. So maybe that's a little bit of a cop-out, but I liked her. I liked her very, very much. Very close second is Dr. Lynn. But again, she just flitted in and then flitted out and flitted in and flitted out. Then she got arrested, taken away by the cops, and that was that. Yeah. Carissa?
My favorite is Julia for sure. I thought she would be someone that I'd want to know. You know, someone that you'd want, if you were sick, you'd want her to come take care of you. I want to be more like Julia. I want to be more capable, and that you're good on the fly and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that she was trusting as well. She just gave things to Bridie to do and was willing, that just trusted that it was going to happen. But she was very confident, and I liked that about her. Yeah, I loved that character. She was a great character. Yeah.
Well, can I just say something?
Yeah.
The reason I didn't choose Julia is because, especially in the very beginning of the book, when you had like her thought process and stuff, I felt her to be kind of down-putting of the mothers that had multiple children, and she was almost, the thought processes that she had about these mothers that were on their like 9th and 10th child, you know, and how bad that was and things like that. For me, that was very off-putting, that, you know, you don't know their life. Like, you don't know, you're making these assumptions, and that kind of put me off. And that's why I didn't choose her really as my favorite.
Yeah.
I know those parts that you're talking about. My impression of those things that she said and the thoughts that she had were not that the women were bad, but the situations that they're put in were bad, because there was no birth control and they're just constantly getting pregnant over and over and over without any control of their fertility at all. That, I felt like she was making a statement about that, not on the morality of the.
Yeah, when I read it, it didn't feel like sympathy. It felt like
No, it didn't
condemning.
feel like sympathy either. It didn't feel like sympathy. It felt like a harsh statement about.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. I guess it that isn't sort of how I pictured it in my head. I was like, and I mean, especially nowadays when we're like sitting here talking about, you know, bias and, you know, implicit bias and all these things, it's like, you know what, maybe we need to be a little more empathetic and step into those shoes and see, you know, maybe that mother, you know, grew up wanting to have a large family and things like that, and you're putting your thoughts into them without necessarily asking the questions, you know, how do you feel about having your 10th child, right? So I think I'm probably using a lens of today on a picture of yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Well, sticking with the character, along the theme of characters, is there any celebrity who you can imagine, because one of her books, one of Emma Donoghue's books was made into the movie Room. Who was it? Not Nicole Kidman, that other actress with the red hair played the woman in Room.
Julia
right?
Roberts?
No.
Julie,
but wasn't it Julianne Moore?
In the Room? No, it was Brie Larson. Brie Larson was in.
Brie Larson. Okay, why am I picturing?
Isn't she the mother? Is Juliet Moore, the redhead, is she the mother of the child?
I haven't seen the movie because I just didn't want to. Look it up. Who starred in Room, and was Julianne Moore in there? But for this book, is there any celebrity who you had in your head for any of the characters? There is an actress. Oh my God. Where did I, now the show that she was in is gone. For Bridie, I had somebody in my head. And did Bridie have red hair? Did she
Yeah.
say that Freddie had red hair?
Yeah.
Yeah. This actress that I have in my head didn't have red hair, but whatever. Is there anybody though who you pictured as any of the characters? No? I do that all the time. You don't do that?
No, not
I'm not
me.
a star. I would never know their name anyway, so that I'd be like, no.
There's
No.
an old British TV show called Tenko. Guess it's from the 70s, and it's a historical TV show, really really good, about this group of British women in a Japanese prisoner of war camp during World War II. Really good, and one of them is a doctor, and it's her face is who I have picturing for Kathleen. What's her name? Dr. Lynn. What's her first name?
Kathleen.
Is it Kathleen? Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking Kathleen Lynn, like our former premier, Kathleen Wynne. No, that's not it. But it is Kathleen Lynn, right? And yeah, it's her face that I'm picturing to be the doctor in that older British actress. And I know that Dr. Lynn is not as old as I'm imagining this person to be, but yeah. I watch a lot of British TV shows and Australian TV shows, so those people are always in my head.
Mhm.
No?
Do you know who I saw for Dr. Lynn?
Who?
Oh my goodness. And I cannot believe, because we've discussed so often her name, and not an actress. She's a doctor at St. Mike's.
Tessler?
Tessler.
No,
Oh.
no.
I don't know why.
This
because
Dr. Lynn is an activist. She's like, she knows how to like use guns and climb on the rooftops and stuff like that.
I don't know why that's what's stuck into my head. But for
No,
variety-
Tessler is an old, dried up,
She
leather.
might listen to this podcast.
He does not listen to this podcast. God's
So,
sake, no way.
this is the woman I'm talking about. This actress here. This
Is
is a
she
young.
actually that old?
No, she's not that
No,
old.
no. I know she. That's what I said.
Like
She's not this old. But this is the actress that I was picturing in my head to play Dr. Lynn. Maybe there's a younger picture of her when she was much younger, but yeah, that's who I was imagining.
for Birdie, I actually did think of Saoirse Ronan.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like a blondie redhead, but she popped into my head when they were first describing her when she was younger, because she was very bird-like when she was
See,
younger.
I could see her for Julia. And then one of the Fannings for Bridie.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I don't usually do that though.
What is she
I just
on?
read the book.
When I'm reading it, this is who I'm picturing in my head, though. And once I get that person's face in, I can't get it out. Yeah.
So
And it's just my little quirk when I read, I do that. So okay, okay. Let's talk about the romance. What did you think about the romance? Talk to me about this romance
Didn't see
between
it
Julia
coming.
and Brady.
Didn't.
Didn't see it coming.
No.
Nobody saw it coming. No.
Nope, not in a million years.
No.
So how do you, as a literary element, what are your thoughts?
As a literary element, it was the bomb. Like, it was amazing. Like, who wasn't sitting there with their jaw dropped? Like, what? Yes. Yes. In the 1920s, of course that happened, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Happened since
It all made sense.
Yeah.
It made sense when they were on the roof and they didn't want to be apart from each other. And then it's almost like that feeling when you meet a new friend, but a guy or a partner or a female, whatever you're into. But yeah, that feeling of not wanting to be away from each other. And then that kiss, oh, it was so good. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was a good twist.
Was it good for you, Kim?
To be quite honest, no. I thought it was I thought it was a waste of pages, to be completely honest. Like, you just sort of threw this in like the last 10 pages going,
Oh, and by the way, they're in love.
yeah, what the fuck is happening here? Like, can we just get back to like what's going down, what's happening in the thing? But I don't not a big fan of romance novels. I'm not a big fan of romance. And I watch TV and these doctor shows and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, let's get in there. Let's cut some stuff up and let's do this. And then it's suddenly like, oh, but I love you. Oh, what the fuck is that? Just get that off my screen. I just want to know the story. But it just felt like it was tossed in there. And I get what you're saying. Like, that friendship, that camaraderie, that closeness, I think that can happen without it jumping to romance and sexualizing of that. When it jumped to that, I was like, whatever, let's just keep moving. But that's me. Like, I'm not, for me, the romance died like, 10 years ago. So I don't think that, I think romance is dumb. So
Dumb.
yeah. Yeah.
So dumb. And what's funny,
that's where I live.
Yeah, I get that.
Interestingly, I love romance. I'm dying for romance. I'm like casting spells to bring romance back into my life. I think romance makes everything better and nicer, and I didn't like it either. I didn't like. No. Again, I felt like Emma Donoghue, like, again, as a literary element, not just like as a statement on life. Of course, there were same-sex relationships in 1918, of course. I felt like it was a token. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It felt like it was a token lesbian relationship to make it more palatable for people of our times. And so what would have been better for me, I wouldn't have minded if they had looked at each other and realized there was something more, and there was something growing between them, and then it ended before that would mean more to me, rather than, oh my God, all of a sudden she's like devastated and how's she gonna live without Bridie? You spent 3 days with her.
What about the part with the doctor in the office with the picture on her desk?
That I appreciated. I think that was actually true about Kathleen Lynn.
Because was that her partner? Was it your sister? And they didn't tap into it, but it definitely alluded to it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I would have preferred if the way I was writing it in my head as I was reading it through was that they were going to be on that rooftop. They were going to be together as friends and as camaraderie, and then Julia was going to take her from the system and bring her into her family. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see that sisterhood. I wanted to see that, saving her from that crap that she had grown up all her life. And then suddenly they were kissing, and then suddenly she's dead.
Yeah, help her craft her trade as a nurse.
Yes.
Yeah, but I wanted to be a nurse.
Yeah, that's what I would have liked to have seen. That's how my head went. And because it went completely off the rails from where I had expected it to go, I was like,
and I mean, if she had to die, fine, she had to die.
Sure.
But I would have liked Julia to have felt grief for a loss of a potential deep friendship, rather than this sort of fake loss of, because this is my feeling about romance, is that the media, like, we make it seem like instant, that it can happen instantly, and that's not friggin' true. That friendship is much more, friendship is deeper, friendship, and real romance takes a long time, and it doesn't last. It's superficial. But so if she had focused on this friendship, and if she had felt grief for the loss of a really deep potential friendship, I would have appreciated that more than this kiss that stirred up all these feelings that she didn't know she had. Whatever. Yeah.
Well, and I think as well, if there had been some inkling in the pages before, in the days before, that, where their hands touched, or, where, if there had been something like that, then I could see that romance as a really good literary thing, that, being up on the roof, then they did realize. But it was like there was nothing, like zero. And then suddenly they're kissing, and now she's like brokenhearted, and it's like you say, like, you didn't even have feelings for her until like that very second, and then 3 hours later she's dead. So I'm sorry, why is your heart broken?
She went from realizing, oh my God, I'm in love with her, and it was hours later that she was dead.
Yeah, like
That was too much of a wild ride, Emma.
I
Come
love that though. I love when I'm
Oh.
expecting one thing. Like you guys said, I totally saw this development of this camaraderie and this uncertain sense of trust of this person she barely knows, but for some reason is feeling drawn to helping and leading. And what I felt was kind of like mentoring happening. And
yeah.
I love that I got fucked over. Like I love that where I thought it was going was completely sidelined by Bridie's decision to just kiss her, to go with whatever she was feeling in that moment and kiss.
That's what I thought.
I love that I got messed up.
I think in my head, Bridie was younger than I guess maybe she was. Like when, to me, she was like a 16, 17-year-old kid and Julia was a full-grown ass adult. Like, I don't know. That's another, like, the dynamic that kind of messed with my head. I'm like, well, that seems super weird.
But
like,
they talked
why?
about their ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were guessing at her age.
Right.
And given how young she acted and the fact that she did lie about actually being, you know, that she'd had it,
Yeah.
I was like, clearly this girl is younger than what she's saying. And that whole dynamic was like, I don't know about that. That just seems kind of icky to me.
Problematic dynamic.
Yeah.
Well, that was where the lack of character development for her comes in, right? Like,
True.
think about like how many years did she spend in that convent without even being out and around other people to build social skills? Maybe she acted young because she just didn't have the like we could go on and speculate about how and why she was the way she was. But I too I love the I love the shock. I love the look what's unfolding here. You never saw this coming. I love that in a book. And I am a hopeless romantic. And I certainly will not speak to romance in a same-sex idea because I'm in a heterosexual relationship, but I do have gay friends, and I have the lesbian friends that I have will admit every time they fall hard and they fall fast, and then it ends just as quickly when it ends. It's like in and out lesbian, like it seems like
that's a pretty big statement to make.
Yeah, but in and out. Yeah. But that's what a friend has shared with me. Like, we just seem to fall hard and fall fast. Like, that's just what we do. I'm like, well, okay.
And what I've noticed too in some other books that I've read, there's at least 2 other books, I can't think of them now, that I did in my other book club, where there's all of a sudden this poof, this lesbian romance just pops up. And you're like, oh, okay, I didn't see that coming. It makes it I feel like there's this theme or this trope that that women don't know who they are and don't know who their sexuality is until somebody sits on a roof with them and kisses them, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh my God, this is amazing, I think I'm gay, even if they don't have those words for it. Because if even in 1918 a woman knows what she feels all through your life, you know who you feel feelings for and who you don't feel feelings for, and that continues and continues. And maybe, yes, eventually at some point you get your first kiss and you realize, oh my God, yeah, this is home, this is what it's supposed to be like. But in the books they mention nothing about the person's sexuality, and then it is as if it just happens all at once in that one thing. And I just I'm just not there for it. It feels like tokenism.
Yeah.
It feels like they're just throwing that in there for a little sensationalism and titillation. Just here's some lesbian sex for you. There you go. Just throw that in there, make it a little
come on, they only kissed. I would have, come on, there was only a kiss.
Well, it you know, it was, yes, that's true. So it wasn't like they didn't rip each other's clothes off on the rooftop, right?
You can see other people getting this book, they're like, okay, where's the lesbian sex? Where's the lesbian sex?
I'm misleading you all into going out and buying it in the hopes of porn. It's not like that at all. But I do feel like that it was thrown in there for a little bit of titillation, a little bit of you know, just to make it interesting, and I didn't need it.
And I think as well too, I think it does a disservice to same-sex couples and lesbian relationships, that we didn't have that nice build up to, they glanced across the room,
Yes.
their hands brushed against one another, they bumped shoulder to shoulder, where you have that sort of, oh, the little butterflies and things like that. Like, why? That's not fair to not think that stuff doesn't happen either. And as you
That's
say,
what I
as
mean. Yes, that's
yeah,
what I
like
mean.
as a toke, a trope, it's like we
Well,
deserve that too. Like, come on,
it would be
not
interesting to get
feel those.
it would be interesting to get the representation then of somebody who lives their life in a lesbian relationship and their sexuality is around this, to comment on it, because maybe we shouldn't be commenting it on at all.
Well, I'm just saying how it makes me feel.
Sexuality is a spectrum too, right?
True.
There's a massive spectrum in sexuality, and
True. This is absolutely true too.
like I will admit on YouTube, on this podcast, there have been women in my life who I have wanted to kiss like that, and it never came to fruition.
Our 6 YouTube listeners are shocked. They're shocked.
Transfixed.
I wanted to kiss a couple of girls in my life, and that relation has been on the brink for me. And I'm married to a man now for 22 years, but I can't say that I haven't been in that spectrum of.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you're saying that
You've
now.
had the butterflies, and you've
Yes,
had
you've had that. And that maybe,
so why didn't we get that in this book?
Right. Maybe one day, if you did get the right kiss from the right girl, then that would be it for you. But that's what I'm saying, is we didn't get any of that. Julia was the straight lace, like practically like no sexuality about her.
This big of a book to
Yeah,
get.
and I would have absolutely happily read that thick of a book for a little more character development in everybody.
But they had to get it published. They had to get it published quick during quarantine to make it.
She admits it. Rush.
Yeah, that's true.
She admits it at the end, right? We just wanted to get this out.
So talk to me about these no quotation marks. Why?
What the fuck?
Oh my God.
Is there anybody know of any reason why an author would do that? I didn't look it up. I was going to.
I've never seen it before. I've
seen it in one other book, but it was written a little differently. It was A Million Little Pieces. Remember that?
I read that.
James Fry, I think his name is.
Yes.
The way he wrote his book, every single sentence was on a different line.
I forgot about that. Yes.
So there was no quotations, but you didn't have to like differentiate thought and words.
Dialogue.
Yeah. So that's the only other time I saw it. And even getting used to that method of writing, I was like, what the hell? Like, this is using up a whole shitload of paper, dude. Like, blend this shit together. But having it blended like that, that's the only other time I saw it was in James Fry's book. And it was hard that time. And it was harder in this book. Like,
because you kept on having to because the sentences would run on, then you're like, oh, okay, dialogue ends there. And then this thought or action continues there. And I kept on having to okay, do that.
I'm going to Google it. Maybe there's something on Google about it.
Yeah, if there is, there's got to be some, she just didn't feel like doing it like that one day because her publisher would have said, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But then the hard part was too, like when you're reading and you read chapters and then you stop and then you go back the next night to read and you're like, oh fuck yeah, okay, I've got to switch my brain over. Okay, what are we doing here? And it's like, shit, did she say that out loud?
Right.
You just
did
think
she say
that.
Out loud? Did she hear it? Did somebody else say it? Was she
nuts? Who actually said it?
Who said it?
Yeah,
that drove me nuts.
That it drove me nuts too, and I wonder if you'll find anything, Christine, because I don't know. There was a couple of things that I highlighted that I thought were hilarious because, and I don't know if it's a British thing or a European thing, but in Jamaica people use this word all the time. On page 52 in my copy here, Delia Garrett coughed pointedly. Whenever you two are finished titivating, I'm gasping for a cup of tea, she said. And in Jamaica, we say that all the time. You say that about somebody who's getting all dolled up for a specific reason to try to attract somebody or whatever. Titivating. It's a lovely word. And I was thrilled. To see it in here. It might be an Irish thing or a British thing or whatever, but it certainly made it to the Caribbean.
So,
My
so I
Caribbean.
found something that said the novel has no quotation marks around the speech, so Julia's thoughts and spoken words blur into each other. Quote unquote, I wanted to create a really kind of trippy atmosphere where the whole thing felt like an exhausted dream, Donoghue says.
What?
People's words are just not that clearly distinguished from the words in the government posters on the wall, the words going through her head, the things she's trying to remember. It just makes the reader feel a little less safe and makes them work just a little harder.
She's fucking right about all of that.
All right.
Yep.
It
I mean, it did
Still
fuck with
adds
us.
right? The
Huh?
absolute exhaustion that she was experiencing was just one thing leading into another, an
Yeah.
experience, a thought, being exhausted, caring for her brother, trying to put things into separate boxes, but you're absolutely not able to.
Got it.
Everything together. It's like chaos.
Yes.
3
Yeah.
days of chaos.
It did
Well-
feel like chaos, yeah.
If that was her intention, she did an excellent job. And if that was her reason for doing that, then it worked. Because saying that is the best description. This book felt like an exhausting dream.
Yeah.
That's exactly, it was crazy. It was wild. Some parts of it didn't make any sense. It was like you were on the edge. You were a little bit scared. And that's exactly what it felt like, an exhausting dream. And that was her intention. So I'm going to move it up. What did I give her? 6.5. I'm give it a 7 because of that now. Because I
should
heard
have that right at the front. She should have that explanation, like
right at the front.
Yeah. I shouldn't have to Google that after I've read the damn book.
I was reading this book and I knew I started it and I'd only gotten like maybe like 2/3 and I knew I had to finish it. So it's definitely one of those books. It is an easy read, so you could do it in like a day because I finished the other half of it last night. So that, because I actually enjoyed it more when I cram read it because you kind of got that feeling building up of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Faster. Yeah.
It's like binge watching a show.
Yeah.
You really I think you get more out of the show than watching one episode a week for a year.
Yeah. I loved that part. Yeah. I loved reading it that way.
Excellent. Anything else, any other quirkiness about the book that you thought was?
It's not quirky, but I really loved learning the true meaning of influenza and where that came from.
Yes, yeah, from the which is the title of the book, The Pull of the Stars, comes
That's
from.
right.
Tell us, Christine,
Yeah.
share that with us.
It's on page 147 because I tagged my. Another thing you can't do with audiobooks, which maybe you can
Yes.
somehow, but I don't know how to do it.
Mhm.
That's what influenza means, she said. Influenza del stella, the influence of the stars. Medieval Italians thought the illness proved that the heavens were governing their fates, that the people were quite literally star-crossed. So influenza is the Latin word for influence. So the influence of the stars. So influenza, flu, that's where the words came from.
Yeah.
I had worked that page as well, which is funny.
Oh, fun.
But the other thing was how they pulled the end of it, how they were on the rooftop, and I know it's not everyone's favorite part, but they were looking up at the stars, and it was a clear night, and there was all the stars, and I thought that was fun.
See, I love that part of the whole rooftop scene.
Mhm.
I loved the rooftop scene, but I just didn't appreciate the romance part of it.
Yeah.
But I loved the them being up there together and looking at the stars and sort of kind of spend the night there and killing time there and all of that. And well, now looking back retrospectively, knowing that it was Bridie's kind of last time.
As a birth worker, I loved something that happened on page 198 as well. It's when Mrs. O'Reilly is having her baby after all those days of labor.
Yeah.
This is when she did the Welch's
Maneuver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then basically got the head born, and then She says, a hasty physician would grab the head now and deliver the body himself, but I'd been taught better. Watch and wait. I was like,
Yeah, so let's talk about these births.
mm.
What did you think about the way that Emma Donoghue wrote about birth? We touched on it a little bit, that some of it, well, I said that I felt like a lot of it was sensationalized. But what else? What else did you feel about
I mean, I
the way
think
she wrote about birth?
for the most part, she got a lot right, which is very unusual, despite it being, very sensationalized. But I was just looking, I had dog-eared. Yes, I dog-eared my book, so I know.
It's your book.
It's my damn book. I paid for
Right, you paid for
it. Where she called on page 213, where she called an actual posterior lie a breech birth. I'm like,
Oh, did she? I didn't catch
yeah.
that.
Wait. What was that? Because I remember something about that. What
So
page was that?
this was Honor White's birth. 213. For a breech birth, wrong way up, you might have tried to persuade the tiny passenger to flip over by pressing on the abdomen for this presentation. It was best to use gravity. I got Honor White out of bed and sat her on a chair leaning forward, which was perfect. Like, that's what you're supposed to do, but technically not really a breech birth. I mean,
Right. I don't
unless
think she was saying that, though. She said, for a breech birth, I might have tried to persuade the tiny, like, if this was a breech birth.
So the wrong way up, meaning the head was at the top, not the wrong way.
Yes, breech birth with the head up, but this was a posterior baby, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I guess I read that wrong, because it seemed to me like she was calling it breech.
Yeah. I think she was saying for a breech birth, I might have tried to flip the baby, but this is what she did instead. She got her on a chair to lean forward.
It says, but for this presentation, it was best to use gravity. So the presentation of posterior.
And then she did that thing. She told her to get on her hands and knees for a posterior baby. Yeah. How many times did you say, yes, that's right, I would have done that?
Like every birth, I was like, yep, that's right. Yep, that's right.
It says in the back that she consulted with a midwife. So she did have.
She consulted with the expert to say, make sure I don't get any of this shit wrong. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Very annoying when that happened. I thought it was accurate. I had to Google a couple things because I didn't know what they were. And that whole pubic bone thing.
How horrifying was that?
That was a thing.
Saw what? In what?
Yeah, that was a thing.
That was the thing.
Oh,
I had never heard of that.
Me either.
I had
too. There's a book. There's a history of birth book. I can't remember the name of it.
Really? I need that, because I need it for another reason.
Anybody else? I'll Google it. Talk amongst yourselves.
I feel like I did have one at one point. And
they talked about that in history. Like, they talked about how C-sections came to be and the history of birth.
The stats also in the book were really interesting about women or children that were poor or underprivileged not living past that year. Like, wow, how lucky are we?
And you see Julia having glimmers of social conscience when thinking to herself, well, it's not that there's something wrong with the kids, it's because of the situations that they're born in. And if a child is born in a situation where they're despised and not cared for and not fed properly, of course they're going to die more often. That makes sense.
Oh, I have that book. I never read it clearly.
What's it called?
It's called The Surprising History of How We Were Born. And it's called Birth by Tina Cassidy.
I think I read that book, and it felt like it was missing a lot.
Yeah, I think I started and put it down a couple times. I have it.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Great. What else do I have here for you? Oh, yeah, so I said birthing details, any wild ones, gory ones, questionable things that she did. So one comment that I had is that maybe this is just because I'm old now. But I had another book club meeting on Saturday, and we read The Dutch House. I don't know if anybody's read The Dutch House. I loved it. I gave that book an 8. I loved it a lot. But everybody was saying, oh, I wanted more. I wanted more. I'm like, what the hell is with you people wanting more? Be satisfied. So The Birth House was, it's like a family saga almost. And there are things that happen in the story that are infuriating, that make you think like, oh my God, this just needs to be fixed. This can't stay like this. But it was so very real, like real life. You see injustices happen and they just keep happening. And if you take a slice of somebody's life, like how this is a slice of life, it's 3 days in the middle of this craziness that's happening, things are not gonna get fixed. And I would be annoyed if she wrapped it all up neatly, because that's not real. That's not how things go. But I don't mind having a slice of life and having just a story be told about these people at this time. And that might just be, I feel like it's a pandemic quarantine thing. I don't have any interest in reading things or watching things that are wild, adventurous, overly dramatic. If you're going to tell me a story, just tell me like a family story that's just about ordinary family stuff. Things happen, people die, people are born, and things just move on.
Some people will argue that sounds boring as hell.
Yeah, I know. And I don't always feel like that, but at this moment, that's what I'm craving. And so I don't mind when I don't get, all kinds of exciting action and adventure and all of that. A slice of life is okay. And so that I appreciated that about this book, that it was a slice, besides all the other criticisms. But if it's a historical fiction, how's the pandemic supposed to be fixed? There's no, I mean, she could have made Bridie survive it, I guess. She could have gotten the flu and then survived it. But that's just my comment on the kind of books that I like, and what I don't mind not getting exciting plot twists and turns and all of that. Nah, just give me ordinary stuff that makes sense.
How did you guys feel about her taking the baby at the end?
So good.
Oh, she had to. I mean,
Yes.
come on.
Yes, she's Julia. She had to.
Yeah.
It seemed like something Julia would do. And I love when she went to the priest and said, was it the priest or the doctor?
Priest.
And said, basically, give me the fucking baby, you stupid asshole.
Well, she had to say that to the nun. The nun had the baby. The nun was walking left hospital with the baby.
Yeah. Oh, so how do you feel? Is anybody here Catholic? Steph, aren't you Catholic?
I'm Anglican.
Anglican. The portrayal of the clergy. It was pretty harsh on the Catholic clergy.
That could have as easily been the Anglican Church. Yes, it was very accurate. The misogyny, the way you have to ask.
Child abuse.
Yeah, all of
absolutely.
it. All of it.
I'm so my family, my mother is the first of 17 children. So
my gosh.
My very Irish Catholic grandmother was born and raised in Newfoundland, and what my family has endured at the hands of 17 children is its own book in itself. Mm-hmm. So there was parts in that book where it made me so angry, but that's only because of what my past is about and my experience. So my mom had a baby out of wedlock before I was born and was pretty much forced to give that baby up for adoption. So a lot of this book was hitting really close to home. So
I bet. Wow.
The story ends lovely for our family. I found my brother and we have a relationship, and my mom has so many prayers and her prayers answered to knowing he's well. But what women suffered at the hands of an organized religion is absolutely atrocious. Of some of the injustices in the world, if I could undo, it's
you would undo half of them if you wiped out the Catholic Church doings. Yeah. Okay,
thank you for you saying it.
Yeah.
I'm a recovering Catholic. Another book I just read, which is incredible, and it's a Canadian book, and it's near and dear to my soul because I'm a newfie and I love Great Big Sea. And the one member of Great Big Sea who left the band, he wrote a book, and his,
Yes, he did.
yeah, and now
Yeah.
he lives in the same village as me
Oh.
in Manotick.
What's it called?
It's called One Good Reason, and it's all the story of his life and how he was sexually abused by a priest in Newfoundland.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love Great Big Sea.
Yeah, me too.
If you thought you knew everything about me, surprise. I love the Maritimes and I love Great Big Sea.
Yeah.
And his
So
journey is just amazing.
Pardon, Steph?
His journey, his decision to leave the
Oh.
band, like how it all connects.
Yeah.
Is really amazing.
This book is amazing. It really truly is. And I don't want to spoil it. Get the book and look, when you finish reading, the last page is my favorite. I don't know if you have the hands book stuff, but the last page is so special.
I only read a preview, like an excerpt that was done initially before it came out, but I'd heard about it coming out and what was going to be released and what he was going to share. So I was really excited to read that. It's on my list.
It's a good one.
Amazing. Well, that's all I got for y'all.
Woohoo!
And it's been a ride.
Been around.
And we will try and figure out what our next book is going to be.
Do you
I
guys
saw
have any-
one at Chapters.
What'd you see?
Oh God, I don't remember what it's called, but it's Canadian. But when I read the what's it called, like the summary inside the cover, it sounds so much like The Handmaid's Tale. You know, like how after Twilight there was a million books about
Is it the
teenage
birth
vampires.
tent? The one I spoke about, the birth tent.
The birth tent?
No, that's not it. The birth yard.
Yes, that's it. The birth yard.
It is very similar.
It sounds good, but
So
it
good.
sounds like, is it really good? Well, that's the one I was thinking, and I'm like, oh, except that it sounds exactly like The Handmaid's Tale, and why don't we just do
What I
The
mentioned
Handmaid's
last
Tale?
Well, I never read The Handmaid's Tale, so I don't mind reading that one.
I loved it. My daughter's going to read it next, but I really enjoyed it.
Well, I don't know
Valerie
what
Tater's first book.
what's her name?
Mallory Tater.
Mallory Tater. Yeah.
The
I
birth-
mean, I love The Handmaid's Tale, and I have read it a million times, and I wouldn't mind reading it again because it's one of my books, like Anne of Green Gables, that I'll read and read and read and read over and over and over. So, or we'll do The Birth Yard. But anyways, we'll let you all know. what we decide.
And we're open to suggestions, so throw us some ideas.
Absolutely.
Yes.
is it obviously the books are going to stay centered around birthy world stuff?
We'd like to, but I mean, we don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, I also was thinking, speaking of tents, The Red Tent.
Yeah, so
It's
good.
one of my favorite
What
books
about that book?
all time.
Read that a long time ago.
Did you watch the miniseries?
I didn't.
Oh,
I
it's
didn't watch
so
the
good.
miniseries.
It's so
Um,
well done.
Was it well done? I didn't see it. But The Red Tent, every single book club has to do The Red Tent. It's a thing.
Sure.
But anyways, that's another one of my suggestions, and that's really good too. It's got birth, it's got women, it's got religion, it's got history, it's ancient history stuff, and it's just
I forgot all about that book. It's a good one.
go revisit it.
The Birth House is good, and that's also
Oh,
Canadian.
that's right, The Birth House.
Great
And
book.
it's at the Maritimes.
That's right. Nova
Great
Scotia,
book.
Lots
right?
of options. Yeah.
That gets my vote.
The Birth House.
Yeah.
Love
That's
that
a
book.
good book too.
All right.
Well, we hope you liked our book club episode, and we've inspired you to pick up a book and start reading. Pick up this book and start reading it. Tell us how wrong we are or how right we are. We welcome your opinions. Any last words, people?
Just
Uh,
you to Miss Christine and Miss Carissa.
Thank you so
jumping in.
much.
golf
Thanks for
clap.
having
Yay.
us. It was so fun.
Yeah, it
Good
was fun.
job. All right.
Thanks for opening up to have guests, and keep doing what you're doing, ladies, because Canadian content for doulas is important, and I love listening to you guys.
Oh,
Learn something every
thanks.
time.
Bless your heart.
Thanks.
I'm off to a postpartum shift now.
All right.
Good. Go
Have
earn that money. Go earn that money. Do it.
Have a great one, everybody.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Don't forget to
Bye.
rate and subscribe. Bye.